November 7, 1862. Early morning, Rectortown, Virginia. Cold hands low over the camps of the Army of the Potomac, clinging to canvas and mud like a second skin. Horses stamp and snort in the gray half-light. Then, somewhere, a bugle cracks the silence. Tired, almost resentful. The war has paused here, not ended, just waiting. George Brinton McClellan is awake. He's been awake for hours. Inside a modest farm is commandeered as headquarters. McClellan stands near a small table littered with maps. Virginia folded and refolded until the paper has gone soft. Blue and red pencil lines snake across rivers and roads. Plans within plans, always plans. He rubs his thumb along the edge of a map as if feeling for something solid beneath it. Outside, you can hear the army breathing. 100,000 men, the largest force the Union has ever assembled. His army. A horse approaches at a trot. McClellan doesn't look up right away. He already knows. You can feel it in the room, the subtle tightening of the air, the way the morning seems to lean inward. Boots crunch on frost. A pause. Then the knock, not loud, not urgent, just official. The door opens. Major General Burnside's aide steps in, cap in hand, face stiff with the discipline of a man delivering something he wishes he didn't have to carry. "General," he says. One word. Heavy as iron. McClellan turns slowly. He's immaculately dressed, as always, tailored coat, gloves folded just so. His face is calm, too calm, the calm of a man who has been arguing with ghosts all night and lost. The aide extends the envelope. McClellan takes it. No rush. No visible reaction. He breaks the seal with a practiced motion, unfolds the paper once, then again. His eyes move across the lines, left to right, steady, controlled. This is how the Army of the Potomac learns its commander has been fired. Not with a speech, not with a shout, with a piece of paper. Major General McClellan will immediately turn over his command to Major General Burnside. That's it. No thanks, no explanation, no ceremony, just an order. Signed in Washington. Signed by Abraham Lincoln. For a moment, McClellan says nothing. You can almost hear the blood in his ears. This is the man who organized the army from chaos. Who trained it, clothed it, fed it. The man the soldiers call Little Mac. The man they cheer when he rides past. The man whose name they've stitched into songs and curses and prayers. And now, dismissed. The aide waits, eyes fixed somewhere just above McClellan's shoulder. Military etiquette demands silence. So does fear. Everyone in this room knows history is shifting. Even if they don't yet know how. McClellan folds the paper carefully. Twice. Precisely. Then he exhales. Not a sigh, not a groan. A measured release. Like a man setting down a weight he's been carrying too long, but still resents having it taken from him. "Well," he says at last, voice low, even almost polite. "I suppose this is it." The aide nods, relieved the moment hasn't exploded. McClellan looks past him, through the doorway, toward the camp stretching into the mist. Rows of tents. Flickers of firelight. Men stirring awake, unaware that the ground beneath their command has just shifted. They will be surprised, McClellan says quietly. He means the soldiers. Or perhaps he means the country. Word travels fast in an army. Faster than orders. Faster than truth. Within minutes, officers know. Within an hour, regiments know. By midday, the entire Army of the Potomac hums with disbelief. Fired him. Men curse. Men shake their heads. Some sit down hard on ammunition crates, staring at nothing. Others mutter Lincoln's name like it's a foreign word they don't trust. McClellan steps outside. The cold hits his face, sharp and clarifying. His horse is brought forward. A beautiful animal. Well-fed, well-groomed, like the army itself. He mounts smoothly, every inch the commanding general, even now. As he rides through the camps, something unexpected happens. The men cheer. Not a polite cheer, not a forced one. A roar. Hurrah for Little Mac. Hats fly into the air. Soldiers surge toward the road, reaching out as if proximity alone might change the order that's already been written. McClellan raises his cap in acknowledgement, his expression unreadable. Inside him, something twists. This is what Abraham Lincoln never understood. The loyalty. The connection. The army wasn't just commanded. It was courted, carefully, patiently, like a fragile thing that could shatter if rushed. McClellan believes that still. He rides on, absorbing the sound, the faces, the moment, knowing it is already becoming memory. That evening, alone again, McClellan finally allows himself to speak freely. To friends. To the silence. What he says is not a shout of anger. It's colder than that, sharper, and aimed directly at the man who just removed him. Because George McClellan is not finished arguing his case. Not with the army, not with history, and certainly not with Abraham Lincoln. And the words he chooses in this moment will echo far beyond this campfire-lit night. Night settles hard over Rectortown. The cheering has faded, replaced by the low, restless sounds of an army trying to sleep without its father still in charge. Campfires burn down to coals. Somewhere a sentry coughs into his sleeve. The war presses in again, patient and unforgiving. Inside the farmhouse, McClellan sits at a small desk. A single lamp throws long shadows across the walls. His coat is off now, draped over a chair. The general looks older in lamplight, 36, but carrying years the calendar doesn't show. This is the moment after the ceremony. The moment when pride stops performing. An aide stands nearby, uncertain whether to stay or go. McClellan waves him off with a small motion of the hand. He wants privacy. Or perhaps an audience that won't interrupt. He reaches for paper. You can almost feel the tension in his fingers as he steadies the pen. This isn't an official report. This isn't for Washington. This is something closer to confession. Or indictment. Earlier, when the order was first read, McClellan had been restrained, publicly dignified. But, privately, the dam cracks. He speaks before he writes, words spilling into the quiet room, sharp enough that the lamp flame trembles. Lincoln is nothing more than a well-meaning baboon. The phrase hangs there. Ugly, memorable, dangerous. It's not new. McClellan has used it before, in letters to his wife Mary. He's called the president, the original guerrilla, an idiot. Oh, traitor surrounded by knaves. But tonight, the words feel heavier. Final. This isn't a general complaining about civilian interference anymore. This is a man who believes he has been wronged by history in real time. McClellan sits back, staring at the wall, replaying every moment that led here. Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history. A tactical stalemate sold as a strategic victory. He had Lee on the ropes. On the ropes. And Washington still accused him of caution, of delay, of timidity. They never saw what he saw. They never felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on every order, every advance. An army destroyed couldn't be rebuilt. A reckless charge couldn't be recalled. McClellan believed this with near religious certainty. Lincoln didn't. Lincoln wanted movement, action, risk. McClellan wanted perfection. He dips the pen and finally writes. Not the insult, not the rage, but something far more revealing. He writes that the country is in the hands of an ignorant and unprincipled administration, that the war is being mishandled by men who do not understand armies, logistics, or reality. And then, almost casually, he writes something chilling. That he could have been a dictator, not as a threat, not as a joke, as an observation. The army loved him. The soldiers trusted him. If he had chosen to defy Washington, who would have stopped him? That question lingers unspoken in the room, heavier than the lamp smoke. But McClellan doesn't cross that line. Instead, he frames himself as the tragic figure, the professional soldier undone by politics. A man too honorable to seize power, too careful to gamble lives for headlines. Outside, the army sleeps. Inside, McClellan continues to talk, to relive. At one point, an officer, young, loyal, ventures a cautious question. Sir, do you regret anything? McClellan looks up sharply. Regret, the word almost offends him. I regret, he says slowly, that the country prefers noise to judgment. There it is again. That belief, that unshakable conviction that history will side with him once the shouting stops. He believes Lincoln will be blamed, that the war will drag on. That failure will expose the president's ignorance. What McClellan cannot see, what he refuses to see, is that the war is changing, the enemy is changing, and the country is losing patience with generals who promise everything tomorrow. As midnight approaches, McClellan finally sets the pen down. The letters will be sent later. The words will survive him. Long after the camps move on, long after Burnside takes command, long after Lincoln reads reports that no longer include McClellan's name. But tonight, in this quiet room, McClellan still believes the story isn't over. He believes he has been dismissed, but not defeated. He believes the public will remember the cheers, not the delays, the loyalty, not the missed chances. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the anger and the wounded pride, there is a single, dangerous thought forming: if Lincoln fails, they will call me back. That belief will shape everything he does next. Politics, ambition, a return from the shadows. And when that moment comes, McClellan will finally say, out loud, for the whole nation to hear, what he really thinks went wrong. The road out of camp is narrow. McClellan rides it slowly, deliberately, as if pace itself is a form of protest. The morning after his dismissal is clear and cold, the kind of sharp November day that makes every sound travel farther than it should. Hooves strike frozen ground, leather creaks, breath steams in the air. Behind him, the Army of the Potomac is waking under a new name. Burnside's name. That fact lands heavier than the order ever did. McClellan does not look back. He knows if he does, he will see faces. Men he trained, officers he promoted, regiments that marched only because he asked them to trust him. He knows what that will do to him. So he keeps his eyes forward, posture rigid, the very picture of discipline. But inside, something is unraveling. This is the first time since the war began that McClellan is not in command of something massive, living, and dangerous. For more than a year, his identity has been fused with the army. Without it, the silence is deafening. No telegraph clicking, no aides rushing in, no maps to adjust by inches. Just road. Trees. By the time he reaches Warrenton Junction, the world already feels different. Messages that once came instantly now arrive late. Or not at all. Doors open more slowly. Salutes linger in uncertainty. He is still a major general. But he is no longer the general. In Washington, Lincoln reads reports of the transition with his usual restraint. No gloating. No commentary. Just a quiet, deliberate move forward. That, more than anything, infuriates McClellan. He wanted confrontation. He wanted acknowledgement. Instead, he gets indifference. McClellan spends the following weeks writing letters. Long ones. To his wife. To friends. To political allies who still believe his version of events. In these letters, his tone hardens. The restraint of his official conduct evaporates, replaced by something rawer and more personal. He insists the army was not ready. That supplies were insufficient. That intelligence was flawed. That every pause, every delay had been misunderstood by civilians hungry for spectacle. And always, Lincoln is at the center of it. A president who did not know war. A president who meddled. A president who listened to radicals. McClellan's bitterness is not loud. It's methodical, carefully reasoned. The bitterness of a man who believes he has been outsmarted not by a better soldier, but by politics. Then, news arrives. Burnside has moved. The Army of the Potomac is advancing toward Fredericksburg. McClellan reads the reports in silence. He traces the routes with his finger. The Rappahannock River. The pontoon bridge is delayed. The high ground beyond the town. Mary's Heights. Looming in his imagination like a warning flare. You can almost see his jaw tighten. He knows this terrain. Knows what waits there. When word finally comes of the assault. Of the repeated, hopeless charges against stone walls and entrenched Confederate guns. McClellan does not need the casualty figures to understand. This is disaster. Thousands dead. Thousands more wounded. Union soldiers falling in rows, cut down in open fields. Officers waving swords that lead nowhere. Fredericksburg becomes everything McClellan feared Washington would do without him. Reckless. Rushed. Bloody. And in that moment, something shifts. The country begins to murmur. Newspapers that once criticized McClellan now hedge their language. Politicians who celebrated his removal suddenly soften their tone. Soldiers write letters home asking why the man they trusted was sent away. McClellan does not say, "I told you so." He doesn't have to. The war says it for him. Privately, though, he allows himself a thin smile. Not joy, never joy at American dead, but vindication, the quiet, dangerous kind. This, he tells a confidant, tapping the report, is what happens when amateurs command professionals. It is the closest he comes to admitting satisfaction. But the vindication is incomplete, because no summons comes, no apology, no recall. Lincoln does not bend. Instead, the president absorbs the disaster, replaces Burnside months later, and keeps moving. Toward Grant, toward Sherman, toward a harder kind of war. McClellan watches all of this from the sidelines, increasingly convinced that the nation has made a catastrophic mistake. And so, slowly, deliberately, he turns toward a new battlefield. One without cannon fire. One where words matter more than orders. Politics. Because if Lincoln cannot be challenged as a commander in the field, McClellan will challenge him as a leader of the nation. And when he finally speaks publicly, when he stops writing private letters and starts addressing the country, he will choose his words carefully, measured, respectful. But beneath them will be the same conviction born on that cold morning in Virginia that Abraham Lincoln never understood the war. And that history, once fully written, will prove it. Summer 1864. New York City. The heat is thick enough to press against your chest. Carriages rattle over cobblestones. Union blue mixes uneasily with civilian gray as soldiers on leave drift past shop windows filled with campaign posters instead of war bulletins. George McClellan steps onto a platform. Not in uniform now, but in a dark civilian suit. Clean. Conspectable. The general has become a candidate. He pauses before speaking, letting the crowd settle. This is a different kind of command. No buggles. No ranks, just faces. Some hopeful, some skeptical, some openly hostile. McClellan knows exactly how he looks to them. The man who built the army. The man who never quite used it. The man Lincoln fired, he begins calmly. Measured sentences, no fire, no insults. He speaks of the Constitution of order, of restoring the Union as it was. He promises peace, not surrender, but negotiation. An end to bloodshed that feels, to many, desperately overdue. And just beneath the surface, he says what he has been waiting 2 years to say. Without ever naming Lincoln directly, he speaks of a failure of leadership, reckless sacrifice, of men sent forward without adequate preparation. The crowd stirs. Some hear hope, others hear accusation. McClellan never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. His authority comes from what he was, not what he's saying. The image does the work for him. The soldier who could have saved lives. If only he'd been allowed to fight the war his way. Behind him, the Democratic Party is deeply divided. Peace Democrats, Copperheads, want an immediate end to the war. War Democrats want victory, but with restraint. McClellan stands awkwardly between them, carrying a platform he doesn't fully believe in. Privately, he hates parts of it. He does not want disunion. He does not want Southern independence. But he does want to be right. And more than anything, he wants Lincoln to be wrong. Reporters follow him everywhere now, watching for any sign of bitterness, any crack in the polished calm. They rarely get it. McClellan has learned discipline of a different sort. Every word is weighed, every sentence defensible. Still the past clings to him. Someone inevitably asks, "General, do you still believe President Lincoln was unfit to command?" McClellan's jaw tightens. Just for a fraction of a second. He answers smoothly, "I believe the war required a steadier hand than it was given. It's enough." Lincoln, for his part, says almost nothing in response. When pressed, he deflects with dry humor, calling McClellan, "my general," without malice or heat. It infuriates McClellan more than open attack ever could, because Lincoln does not fight him on his terms. As the campaign drags on, the war intrudes in ways no speech can control. Casualties grow, so does exhaustion. Then, suddenly, everything changes. September, Atlanta falls. Sherman's message reaches Washington like a thunderclap. A major Union victory, a turning point. Proof, at least to many, that the war can be won. McClellan reads the headline in silence. You can almost see the calculation behind his eyes. This is the nightmare scenario. Victory undermines his entire argument. Momentum shifts. The country's patience, then as it is, snaps back into resolve. Lincoln's approval rises. The idea of negotiation begins to look like weakness instead of mercy. McClellan presses on anyway. He continues to speak of restraint, of reconciliation. He warns against vengeance, against a war that destroys the very Union it claims to save. But the ground has shifted beneath him again. Just as it did in Virginia. Election day arrives cold and gray. Soldiers vote in the field. Many vote for Lincoln. The same men who once cheered McClellan now choose the president who kept the war moving forward. When the results are clear, there is no ambiguity. Lincoln wins. Decisively, McClellan does not contest it. He does not rage. He does not accuse fraud or betrayal. Publicly, he accepts defeat with dignity.